Sometimes we get it wrong, really wrong. Even countries get it wrong. So the question is, when did we get it right? Because if we can uncover the keys to our success, we can find our way back and then start moving forward. I was born in 1950. At that time, polio was one of the most feared diseases in the country. Within a few years, it was essentially gone. Not long after that, we built the interstate highway system.
And from Canada to Mexico, on safe, multi-lane, divided highways without a single stop.
And then,
we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall.
We took on big, complicated technical challenges. We also took on big, complicated moral challenges.
Their cause must be our cause too. Because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
"5 years later, a very different president extended federal power in another direction, into the safety of the American workplace.
12,500 people lost their lives in accidents in America's factories and in other places of business. And over 2 million people were injured. This bill deals with that. It goes beyond that. It deals with the environment in which the people, the 55 million Americans who are covered by it, will be working.
He also had a government where its 3 branches stayed in their lanes, performing the duties assigned to them by the Constitution. Neither the Supreme Court nor Congress acted as extensions of the presidency. In 1974, the Supreme Court, led by Chief Justice Warren Burger, a Republican appointed by President Nixon, ruled unanimously against President Nixon. Their opinion stated that no person, not even the President of the United States, is completely above the law. The President's need for confidentiality must be balanced against the fundamental demands of due process and justice within our system of co-equal branches. And get this, Justice Burger was appointed to the Supreme Court by President Nixon. And get this, William Rehnquist, also a Republican appointed to the Supreme Court by President Nixon, recused himself from this case because he had previously worked for President Nixon in the Justice Department. He believed his deliberating on this case would have represented a conflict of interest. It would have been unethical. Oh, give me those good old days again, where ethics mattered on both sides of the aisle. In my version of a great America, we cared about protecting the natural world. We cared about working people. And we cared about people who lived beyond our borders, who had less than we did. Between 1950 and 1980, U.S. foreign aid was often a bipartisan endeavor, with Democrats and Republicans alike backing efforts to fight hunger, rebuild war-torn nations, stop the spread of disease, and support democracy abroad. From feeding millions through Food for Peace, to eradicating smallpox with the World Health Organization, to sending volunteers into rural villages through the Peace Corps, American generosity made a real difference in the world. That was something to feel proud of. Was. And another thing, dictators weren't admired, they weren't emulated. Then, sure, in the thick of the Cold War, we sometimes backed them, propped them up if they claimed to be anti-communist. That almost always backfired. We learned that lesson the hard way. But on our better days, we ganged up on dictators with our friends. Together, we built fences of every kind around the bad actors of the world. By creating military alliances like NATO, designed not to attack, but to deter our enemies. Remember those guys? Enemies? Aggressive countries led by dictators that would attack their neighbors if they thought they could get away with it. We learned this the hard way from World War II. Remember Neville Chamberlain? The Brit who thought Adolf Hitler could be appeased by giving him a piece of Czechoslovakia that was German-speaking.
Here is the paper.
That didn't go well, did it?
Which bears his name upon it as well as mine. We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
War. Precisely at dawn on September 1st, without warning, the German Wehrmacht rolled over the Polish border. Before the invasion was 30 minutes old, the planes of the Luftwaffe were over Poland, wiping out the Polish Air Force, most of it caught flat-footed on the ground.
In the aftermath of the Second World War, countries from all over the globe had a brilliant thought. War is not so great. Maybe we should do something about that. Let's get together and create an organization designed to stop war. And while we're at it, mass starvation and pandemics. They did that. It's called the United Nations. At the same time, something else was happening in the country. As the economy grew in the aftermath of World War II, so did the middle class. And the more the middle class grew, the more the economy grew. This virtuous cycle was at the core of America creating the world's strongest economy. It was at the heart of our belief that our economic future was good and would be better for our children.
Women and men alike are increasingly interested in the look of things. They eagerly give their attention to what's new and beautiful and advanced.
When people feel secure about their future, there's little opportunity for the politics of fear and division to thrive. But let's be honest with ourselves. What a concept, right? Our prosperity was not just a result of our good looks, so to speak. We were lucky, incredibly lucky. Unlike the rest of the developed world, whose industrial infrastructure was left in ashes at the end of World War II. Once again, our oceans protected us from that devastation. We were, in effect, the last man standing at the end of the war, and we took full advantage of it. Our industrial output soared. We had a couple of other things going for us, too, like a federal minimum wage that pretty much kept up with inflation. I'd like to see that again. And as you can see, the middle class really was in the middle. And it was big. Sure, there were rich people, but they weren't so much richer than the rest of us. And what else? Union membership was high, giving lots of workers leverage to bargain for fair pay and benefits. Tax policy was progressive. The rich paid a lot more than they do today, and so did businesses. The result was that prosperity was broadly shared, a big middle class, Call it communism or whatever BS you want to call it, but give me more of that. I don't mean to idolize or romanticize this period of my youth. There was plenty going on then that was awful, just as there is plenty going on now that is wonderful. What I am saying is that if we are to look back to the post-World War II period for inspiration, as the other MAGA has done, this is what I would focus on. Decency, empathy, cooperation, fairness, respect for democracy and the rule of law. It was these values that made America great then, and I believe they will be the basis for the next round of American renewal. Let's hit it out of the park. How do you see it? What is your MAGA?
We've drifted from the promise that wants to find our core. We still can be that country, and one day so much more. Not looking for perfection, just rules that play the same. The field's been slanted long enough, it's time to change the game. We still can be that country when courage takes the lead, when doing right means sacrifice, not showmanship or greed, not showmanship or greed.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning.
Gold or glory, it's knowing we belong. When work earns you a living, we're a nation standing strong. We still can be that country when courage takes the lead, when doing right means sacrifice, not showmanship or greed, not showmanship or greed. We still can be that country. We still can be that country. We still can be that country. We still can be that country.
I've said repeatedly in this campaign that the president is my opponent, not my enemy, and I wish him well, and I pledge my support in whatever advances the cause of a better America, because that's what the race was about in the first place, a better America as we go into the next century.